Oh, hi, Martha Jean Johnston. It's really, really lovely to have you here on the Anne Boleyn Files YouTube channel and podcast. So, welcome. You're
Thank
looking
you.
fresh as the daisy. Where are you joining us from
Uh,
today?
Jersey City, New Jersey.
Okay. And the weather outside, is it nice?
Hot and sticky. Very
Hot
hot
and
and
sticky.
sticky, yes.
Yeah, same as here in Spain. So, I assume you've got aircon because you look very fresh.
We do. We have the air conditioning going.
So welcome. And I mean, I thought I'd do this interview to celebrate. I'm a bit late celebrating it, but to celebrate the launch, the publication of your novel, The Queen's Musician. And that came out in May, didn't it?
At the very end of May.
So that tied in well with the sort of anniversary of Anne Boleyn's execution.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, that was a good time to bring it out. And thank you so much because you sent me an advance copy so that I could do an endorsement for you, which was such an honor. Um, I'll
Oh,
just
and
actually,
thank you for reading it. I really was, I just you have so many things going. You took the time to read it. I really appreciate it, and you helped me avoid a little mistake.
that's
So,
true. That is true. I'd forgotten about that. That is
thank you very much.
true. That's okay. I mean, I said about it, I think my endorsement was a captivating and deeply moving retelling of Anne Boleyn's dramatic fall. This beautifully written novel brings history to life with such emotional depth that it brought me to tears. And it really did. Tears in a good way. It really resonated. It was so moving. So,
Thank you. If I have any hope, for the book, it's just I do want the readers to care about Mark Smeaton and the other four men, and that was my main intention. I feel they're often overlooked or treated as little bit players, and this was it was a terrible tragedy of what happened, and I wanted to lay that out for the readers.
yeah, because it's called The Queen's Musician because it tells the story of Anne Boleyn's fall through sort of the eyes of Mark Smeaton,
Mhm.
the court musician who sadly was executed in May 1536 alongside those other men. So I'm just explaining the title for those that don't know it. But
Thank you.
I just love that you handled Anne's story in a very different way. I thought that was a very clever idea.
Well, I think there's so many, her story's been told many times. And if there were another telling, I would read it. I think it is one of, a fascinating story. But to my knowledge, nobody else has really told Mark Smeaton's story. So I
No,
wanted
I
to,
don't
to
think
tackle
so.
that.
Yeah. Okay, so let's start with a question about you personally. Can you tell us a bit about your background and what led you into writing historical fiction?
I spent several decades doing public opinion research. And we were investigating Americans' attitudes about the criminal justice system and the healthcare system and the economy. And as part of the team, I was the one who would write up the results and present them. And in the course of that, with another colleague, I wrote a series of nonfiction books basically about American politics. And I enjoyed the writing. It was but you have to be really careful. You can't use your imagination at all. So I began to think about, I would like to maybe do some fiction. And it was, just time to stop thinking about it and try it.
So when was that? When did you do that?
It was probably a good 10 years ago. I decided I would like to try some fiction. The idea of writing about Mark Smeaton was one of my early ideas. I had several possibilities. And I think, like many people writing their debut novel, I wrote actually a very bad version. And I put it aside. I had some other projects I was working on. And then during COVID, I had plenty of time. I sort of locked indoors. And I went back to it, and that's when I really wrote the main part of the book and got it, pretty much to the final version.
And what sparked your interest in Anne's story and Anne Boleyn in particular and her world?
Well, I think probably like a lot of Americans, I'm a big fan of masterpiece theater. And Masterpiece Theater is an American public television show that shows a lot of British programming. And so I remember from years ago, The Six Wives of Henry VIII and Elizabeth R. And there were some wonderful films, A Man for All Season and Anne of a Thousand Days. And so all of that, those things that just, it's a fascinating time of history. And I, just was always interested in that, and began to think I like history, I like books, and it's kind of a natural fit for me. So C.J. Sansone, the wonderful writer. Who has written a series of mysteries. He died last year, but he has written this wonderful series of mysteries. And he's in some ways my role model as a writer. I think he's so fabulous. But I saw an interview with him, and they said, "How did you get interested in the Tudor period?" He said, "I was watching The Six Wives of Henry VIII, and I thought, well, if it's good enough for him, it's good enough for me."
I think actually that's a lot of people would say that inspired them. It's a lot of people's first experience of it, I think. Yeah. I think it's amazing, isn't it, with Anne? She just reaches through the centuries and inspires people today. Her story really does inspire people. I love it.
Yeah, it's a
So
tragedy, and I think for for me, I think for the people of our time, it is just so odd that a gifted, well-educated woman, that her future could rest on whether her child was male or female.
yeah.
It's sort of shocking to us, and it just, in the fact of the rise, so many years of being with Henry and not being married, then finally she's queen, and it's barely 3 years.
And
It's
it's
just,
like fiction, isn't it?
it really is. It's
It's
a very,
so such a dramatic rise, such a
yeah.
dramatic fall. It really is like fiction, and yet it was real. Yeah. And you were saying that Mark Smeaton, you don't think that anyone sort of handled his story before. Yeah, he isn't the focus of our Tudor fiction. So what, you said that you actually had this idea years ago. So what drew you to him in particular? Why Mark?
Yeah. I think that, it's a very sad story. Apparently, he was the youngest of the men who were accused. He's the only commoner who was accused. I think he's a musician. And, sometimes I would think about, you suppose you have a young Paul McCartney in this kind of conniving court. What happens to somebody who is, he wants to play music. He wants people to enjoy his music. And so I was really taken by, it was unfair to all of the men, but I think particularly unfair to him. He wasn't in any way a mover and shaker. He was a kind of ancillary. And so I just wanted to take his part.
And actually he, at times is treated quite badly, isn't
Yes.
he? Because the fact that he was the one that confessed, and goes to his death, not retracting that confession. So yeah, he's gone down in history for that, which, he was probably very young and coerced and had so much pressure put on him.
Some people have said that to me. Well, why did he confess? And my first idea is, well, you try it. You let somebody drag you away, and keep you overnight, and who knows what they did to you, and you have no power, and you have no important family. You try it. And I did actually, in researching the book. Obviously, I looked at a lot of things about Anne Boleyn and Henry VIII, but I did not extensive, but I did read a little bit about false confessions and the psychological situation where you are, often being brutalized. It's repetitive. You keep saying no. You keep saying no. There's no out. There's a hopelessness that sets in. I think that at some point, let me get through this hour. If I can just make it through the next hour. So I did try to think about that from his point of view, and I think the other. This is speculation, but I also think that probably he did not think that Anne Boleyn was going to be killed. He probably thought she was going to be sent away at worst. And so I think there's a kind of very few people can stand up to that kind of
Mhm.
brutality and pressure and fear. And so I'm very much a defender of his. I don't think I would not have done as well as he did, probably.
Yeah, just the idea that he just wanted it over with, and the only way that it was all going to be over was
Yeah.
confessing, saying what they wanted. Yeah, it's very sad. So, how did you approach researching the Queen's musician? Were there particular sources that you used? Did you just do online kind of research? And then also, were there any discoveries that shaped the novel as well during your research?
I'm not a historian, so I relied on historians, and I cannot tell you how much I relied on the Anne Boleyn files and the Fall of Anne Boleyn, a countdown, and the book about George Boleyn. I relied on you, Claire, many instances, but I read most of the major biographies of Anne and Henry. What is it? The Hunting the Falcon came out actually while I was writing. So I was able to go back and take advantage of that. I did a lot of that kind of research. But I also did a lot of listening to the music because it was so important for me to kind of get a sense of what he would have heard, what he might have been playing, how musicians were. You know, you can say so many terrible things about Henry VIII, but apparently he loved music and he kept a lot of musicians and he apparently treated them quite well. So he does get an A in that category. So I worked about that. And then, as I said, I looked a little bit into false confessions and I went to Hampton Court and tried to soak up a little bit of the atmosphere. But the with Mark Smeaton, so little is known about him that it actually leaves just a lot of space for you to either guess or invent.
Yeah.
Because it's just really a hand. I mean, up until the time of he's arrested, very little is known about him, and even after he's arrested and tried and executed, very little is known. So
Yeah,
it
it's
was,
frustrating because I've tried to look into him so many times, and it says that he's Flemish, and
yes,
and you can't find anything out about his family really and his background. He
yeah.
just seems to come from nothing. So, but then he wasn't important, was he? So, you
Yeah.
know,
I think for me as a non-historian, coming to this, I can remember saying, what do you mean they don't know how old Anne Boleyn is? How can they not know how old Anne Boleyn is? What do you mean they don't know how many pregnancies she? So that even for someone who is as chronicled as she is, there are these gaps of just, it seems like basic facts to us, and yet we don't know.
and any discoveries that changed your novel? Was there anything you discovered in that research that you suddenly thought, oh, must add that?
I think they're not anything that I discovered that nobody else has discovered. I was certainly treading in that sense. But I did, I think for me, it was much more thinking psychologically about him and how somebody who comes from nothing really and has somehow the good fortune to become a wonderful musician and to go to the court and the kind of position that you have you I mean there's a story in the book about he's finally able to buy horses and people say, oh, no, you can't, you're a musician, you shouldn't be having horses, they're just going to be jealous and they're going to say, where'd you get the money? And he's wanted horses his whole life. So to think about that from an individual's view, and then of course I think later on my sense is he probably thought up until April 1536 that his life was going pretty well, that he had come from nothing and here he was with nice clothes and the king's palaces, and then it was just absolutely, taken from him. And so, how does a human being cope with that? How would any of us cope with that? How do you maintain your sanity? So that was on my mind.
Mm. And did your view of Anne or Smeaton change during the writing process?
Well, I learned. I think, when I came, it was, came to it. It was sort of uh, the Anne of a Thousand Days version, or the other Boleyn girl version. So I was learned. Not that I discovered it myself, but I was really quite impressed with how sophisticated she was. how politically sophisticated she was, and her diplomatic skills, and the role she played in that the role she played in bringing some of the new thinking about religion to Henry. So those things were new to me. I don't think they're new to you, who've been really working in this area. But it did give me a different view of her as being a deeper woman than perhaps I had thought of her.
Okay, thank you. Now this question, this next question is really from me, because I really would like to do historical fiction sometime, but I'm coming from the background of research and history, and I just know that I'll get bogged down with the research. And just how do you know when it's time to stop digging and start writing? Or were you still researching things as you were writing? How did you work?
I'm a big outliner. And I was actually, even in my nonfiction books, I was a big outliner. So I was very doing the research. I got it to the point where I could do a pretty good outline. And then I fiddled. I mean, I'm not talking 3 weeks. I'm talking, probably a whole year. I'm fiddling with the outline and trying different things and filling things out. But once I thought the outline was credible and I thought it told a good story, and I had my characters, the people that it's not that I didn't change it later on when I was writing, but then I wanted to write. And so then I would return to the research, when I was confused or needed a new idea, perhaps. I returned to that. So I was able to write it. I've always heard that Alfred Hitchcock knew every scene of the film before he started filming. I don't know if it's a true story, but I've always heard that he had worked it all out. So it was a little bit like that. I had it pretty worked out before I started writing, and then I wanted to try to get what I was thinking of as his voice in my head, so that I could write it. So and then it was it was I won't say it was fun to write, but I did feel. I felt able to write it chapter by chapter. So that was how it. But as you will know, one of the I left things out. So, for example, 7 men were arrested. In addition, I did not write about these 2 other men because I was, hard enough to try to get the all 5 men in. There, I think many things are kind of telescoped, so that like the fall of Wolsey was actually quite extended and up and down, and as Mark learns about it and he's shocked, and to him it seems overnight, which is probably how it might have seemed to somebody who was in a serving position. So there are many things that are left out, but you have to make some decisions about how many people you can keep track of without having 5 pages of lists of characters and family trees in the beginning, which is a little daunting for a lot of people.
And did you let Mark sort of, or the other characters sort of guide you as you wrote? Were you are you a writer that kind of listens to the characters and lets them sort of tell the story? I mean, you talked about how you were quite sort of, you spent a year or so doing the outline. So did you stick to that, or did suddenly, you feel that the character was guiding you in a different way?
Well, this was pretty much I stuck to my outline. When I had a reasonably good version of the book, I started having people read it. And so, how is it? And what do you think? And does it make sense? And blah. And I gave it to somebody who was quite knew the historical fiction, the commercial field pretty well. And she said, "Your book's too short." So I thought, okay. She said, "Your book needs another 10,000 words." I went back and I thought, okay, let's see. And I actually put in 2 conversations, one of Mark and Thomas Cromwell early before anything goes wrong, and one of Mark and the mother of his love in his life, Mad Shelton, this young lady in waiting. So I added those, and it's interesting because when I look back on it, they're some of my favorite parts of the book. I think they added something, but it was because of this something. Well, your book is too short.
Great story, thank you. Um, and yeah, with when you're retelling a story like this, because I mean, your work is historical fiction, but obviously it's retelling sort of Anne's story, but from a different point of view. How do you balance the accuracy with the storytelling? I mean, obviously you had things like Mark's romance with Mad Shelton and things like that. So how important to you was it to be accurate? Were there certain things that you thought, no, I really have got to be accurate about that, and I can't differ, I can't go another way. How important was it for you?
It's interesting because the book is told from Mark's point of view and the point of view of this Mad Shelton, this other young woman. But the spine of the book is Anne's rise and fall. So I tried to be as accurate as I could about the timing of that and what was happening to her. And so I tried to work all that out, using the sources I had. I did think that, he is 17 when the book begins and 24 when he dies. And if you have any luck at all in life, you fall in love in that period. So I wanted him to have a love of some sort. And, so I was looking for a young woman about his age and and I kept reading about Mag Shelton and, there's very little actually known about her. But that is totally invented. But I believe it gives the book a kind of a different perspective that kind of fills him out and allows him. I hope in real life that he had a love of some sort. I also give him a best friend, which is totally invented because I hope he had a best friend. And it's another musician who, at some point in the novel, actually decides to become a priest. So those things are made up, and obviously the whole he is he's in Wolsey's household, and Wolsey falls, and he has the choir master is a wonderful help to him, and the whole story of what happens to him when he first gets to court and how he meets George Boleyn is all made up. It could have been like that, but it is totally created. But I didn't want to have kind of whoppers in the book where something is totally out of whack, or so I tried not to make any really bad mistakes.
Yeah, it's lovely that you did give him some happiness
Yes,
before he gets his head
I hope he
chopped
has
off.
some happiness. I really
Yeah, I
do.
really
As
hope he
well.
did. I really
Yeah.
hope he did have love in his life. Yeah, poor Mark. Um, what about, was there a scene in your book that was especially challenging or even rewarding, even the opposite, rewarding to write? Can you think of anything that, perhaps you took a lot of time over and kept going back to wanting to get it right?
I probably went back many times to the opening, which is actually a little preview. He's already in prison and he's kind of thinking about, just I think stunned still about what's happened to him. So I think, like many authors, you just write the beginning over and over and over again, trying to get it right. But oddly enough, the first scene that I wrote was the first time he's accused of being Anne Boleyn's lover. And I wrote that, and it was almost a test because it's such a dramatic scene and it's so the turning point. And it was really a test for me if I thought I could write it so that it held up, that I would want to go ahead. And then I wrote the book from that scene till the end. And then I came back and wrote the whole part of his rise at court and life, which was actually more difficult because there's so little to go on. You just don't have anything at all.
No,
So,
you just get glimpses of him in the
mm.
records, sort of payments and that.
Yeah, he got some gifts from the king and the book. He got the book from George Boleyn, but that's just really about it.
Yeah, it is difficult. But then that means he's a blank canvas for you though.
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
you have got that, you've got the luxury of that, as a historian. It's just really frustrating writing about him.
Yeah, I have the fortune of having a good friend who is he's a brilliant classical pianist, and I did take some of my feeling about Mark from his experience, where I think, like Mark, he was poor when he was young. He was very gifted, and I think music has shaped his life from the time he was 6, 7 years old, and he has that same kind of love of the music the feeling that, to learn to play a piece that's very difficult and to perform it well is a real challenge. It's like it's something that really gives his life purpose, the respect for his teachers, the sense of music. That there's a power. It's sort of almost magicians, musicians, when they what they can do to us and bring us out of ourselves. So I almost thought of perhaps this is a little different than other depictions of Mark Smeaton because I did think of him first and foremost as a musician and somebody that's shaped his life and that's what's been important to them and that's why he is not out in the field someplace or doing something as a laborer. It really changed his life that he was able to be he had the gift of music and he was able to learn. And so I think that element of his personality, probably shaped my picture of him, perhaps more than other people, other novelists.
Yeah, he must have been so gifted because, if you think about Anne Boleyn, how she'd been, Margaret of Austria's court, then the French court for several years, with the best, the
Yeah,
best composers and musicians. And then you think Henry VIII would have known as well. He wanted to be this Renaissance king, didn't he,
yes.
Henry VIII? So he wanted to be surrounded by the best of the best. So Mark Smeaton must have been incredibly gifted and so young.
And I think, for me, as I'm not a musician, I always think he could play a number of different instruments. I always think of that sort of, sets the real musician apart from those of us who learn to, play a little bit of piano. So, he was gifted in a number of ways. And, I always think about that. What else could you do as a musician other than play for Anne Boleyn and Henry VIII? That had to be the pinnacle of success. And both of them, lovers of music, very, very sophisticated, as you say, having heard the best. And so, this was his avenue to finding place in the world.
So Anne Boleyn's fall has obviously inspired countless interpretations. I mean, if you go on somewhere like Amazon, there is just, novel after novel sort of retelling her story. So, what do you hope that your readers take away from the Queen's musician that's different?
I do hope that it puts in people's minds that 5 men died in addition to Anne Boleyn, and that it was what a cruel conspiracy concocted, and you're going to have 5 men die for this. So I do hope that it kind of reiterates for people just this bloodbath, this waste of human beings who had, George Boleyn was a gifted man, young still. The others, it just was a horrendous plot. And just, so unfeeling and so cavalier. I think, particularly for Mark, it was just seen as disposable.
Yeah,
Just,
collateral damage.
yeah, it
Yeah.
just doesn't, he could be, and one of the things I do in the movies that Mark is thinking, well, if they'll just find somebody else, which I'm sure is true. If, if they killed him, they would have found somebody else and tortured them and gotten them to confess. So I think, I do hope people think about that. Um, I think there's something about this atmosphere of the court where one man is so powerful and has the power of life and death, and everybody is trying to figure out how to either get on his side or what to do about it. And this kind of taking of the trappings of justice. This is really a judicial murder. They did the trappings of justice, but this was the murder of 6 people. And so I do hope it draws that up. It was more than a personal tragedy between Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn. There was other people died.
Yeah, and their families, all their families suffered.
Absolutely,
So
yeah,
many people suffered that year,
exactly.
didn't
Yeah.
they?
And
Thank
I always think about somebody. I don't know. Somebody had something about Jane Seymour's wedding, which was like 2 weeks after maybe something that she married after Anne Boleyn's execution. And you think about the court, and they, it was relatively small. A lot of them knew each other, And either they think that they've been living in this world where the queen was wandering around in this incredible libertine atmosphere and had five, which is a strange thing to think, because you've been, or they think that this has been a people have been murdered. But you just wonder what was going on in their minds with this, incredible death toll from this change. Whether they believe the charges or not, it's got to have been very jarring and a very strange, strange atmosphere.
I think about the common people as well, who probably didn't hear about it until after the fact, a lot
Yeah.
later. Suddenly you've got a different queen.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yes, and I think the the notion of killing the queen, and she was he did it later again. So I was thinking about is it that you can help me with the facts on this? Is it true that it seems like that the two who were executed, that those are the two we're not quite sure what they look like? That there are portraits of Catherine Parr and Catherine of Aragon and
Yeah, that's
certainly Anne of
true.
Cleves,
Yeah.
and I mean, there's a little doubt about what Catherine Howard looked like, and
Yes,
there's certainly
yeah,
doubt
because
about
the
Anne Boleyn.
miniature of Catherine Howard is now suspect. They're now saying that it's more likely to be Anne of Cleves, which, if you
Yeah,
look at her eyes, yeah, it really does match the Anne of Cleves portrait.
yeah.
So yeah, that is true. That's
Yeah.
entirely true. Yeah.
It's just, I think it's sort of, I don't know the degree to which the portraits of them were destroyed or taken away or never done or whatever, but it does seem odd that the two he executed are the ones that we have. For the Anne of Cleves, we have a portrait which is very famous. Whether it's accurate or not is
Yeah.
another matter. Yeah,
Yeah, they sort of lost their lives and they've lost their faces, really, haven't they?
yeah.
To history. It's yeah. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, that's
Uh-huh.
that's a good point. And are there any other lesser known sort of Tudor figures that you'd like to explore in the future?
I was very taken with Sir Francis Weston, who was one of the other men who died. And he also was quite young, and maybe he was a year older than Mark Smeaton. He was not that old, and probably executed in his mid-20s, if that. And his speech on the scaffold is something to the thing of I thought I would live in Sen another 20 or 30 years and then make amends. I never thought it would come to this, something like that,
Yes.
which is so touching. It's just so, and I think it's so young. I think when you're not ready to be sensible when you're that age, and you think I'll be sensible later. And so he does intrigue me. And very little is known about him. He did have a family, a wife and children. But so he intrigues me. I'm actually, I don't know if there's a novel in him because he's so terrible. But Thomas Seymour. I mean, how could you be so ambitious and so reckless and
Yes.
and keep doing it? That is intriguing. I think you'd have to find another hero and have him be there. And then, then I'm quite actually intrigued. It's not Tudor, but the Elizabethan, the people around Shakespeare that intrigue me a lot. The other actors, Christopher Marlowe, that whole the what is it? The Fair Youth. It's the Fair
Mm.
Youth and the Dark Lady, and there's a lot of mystery there.
And what about your next project? What are you working on a book at the moment, or
Well,
are
I
you
think
having a rest?
I think as you will understand well, Claire, there is the issue of you write the book is out, and then you have to promote it and try to
Yes.
get it. This is a very big job. So I actually am, for the next few months, I really want to see what I can do to let people know about this. I would like for people to read Mark's story. I do also, I have a regular blog, which is about historical fiction in general, because I love historical fiction. And so it recommends it and talks about issues. So I'm doing that. And then I have little thoughts that they haven't quite reached the outline state, but just some little thoughts. But I hope that by next year I'll be heavily into outlining something new.
And what's your blog? Where can people
It's
find that?
called Historical Magic,
Okay.
and it's on a Substack blog, and it's I just really I'm always reading historical fiction, and I love it, and it's from all different eras. This one, I'm actually have one coming up that is about an Elizabethan spy, and he was a double agent. He was working for both Elizabeth I and for Philip II, and is apparently based on a real person. And so, what a world that is, and what a time. This novelist really gets you into it. So, did you say you were thinking about writing some fiction?
Yes. Well, I have been. Well, I've written fiction since I was little. It was my
Uh-huh.
first love.
Uh-huh.
But yes, I have got various ideas, but it's just
Good.
having the time to do
Yes.
anything about it, but also, yeah, the feeling that I will get bogged down with the research, really.
Yeah.
And I'll probably want to be too detailed and, make sure that I'm describing the costumes that they're wearing and, completely accurately. I think yeah, I could get bogged down with the details too much. So, yeah, I'm
Well, I
toying with the idea of doing a creative writing course. So,
good. Yeah, good. I think I just use your work was so important to me, and I think it's so accessible. And I think you do such a good job of kind of laying out the conflicts and what's known and what's not known, but in a very clear fashion. Because some of the, I mean, there are some wonderful historians, but when you're on your 10th page and they're telling you whether Anne Boleyn came back to England or went directly to some, you think, okay. So I do, I think you have a knack for picking out the dramatic
oh,
parts of
thank
telling
you.
the story. So you may be very, I encourage you to go a little,
Okay, I will. Yeah, I haven't
you're a
got
good
the
storyteller.
I haven't got the luxury of time at the moment,
That's
but
another matter.
yeah,
Yeah, I
it is
understand.
something I really want to do. Yeah, thank you. So, in perhaps a couple of sentences, how would you describe the mark of your novel?
Uh, what it says on the back of the cover of the book is
Okay,
everyone knows Anne Boleyn's story. No one knows Mark Smeaton's. So it is the story. It is a story of a real historical figure who was a victim of a miscarriage of justice in the downfall of Anne Boleyn, and it tells his story from his point of view.
yeah, thank you. And now for a bit of trivia. So,
Oh.
what's a fun fact about you? Something away from history, writing. Is there like an interesting, strange hobby that you have, or is there? I'm putting you on the spot here.
On Instagram, you have to list your loves. So it's like for me, it's music and ballet and cats and walking in the woods and all these kinds of things. But I love to wrap Christmas presents. And when I was a child, I wrapped everybody in the family. I wrapped their presents, the neighbors, I wrapped their presents. And even now, I wrap many presents that I am not giving to other people, but I'm just wrapping. I love it. I love the papers. I love the ribbons. I don't know. So, and apparently, some people pay money to have their presents wrapped. I can't imagine this is the best part of the whole
That could be
holiday.
a little sideline for you.
There you go.
So you go the whole hog with all the ribbons and
Yes, I
yeah.
know and I admit to have done it, that now people just put their present in a bag with a little tissue paper, and it looks lovely. I'm very happy to have the bags usually, but I like it, I like to put the paper out and wrap it and do the corners, and so this is,
That's a great bit of trivia.
on the other side of it, I absolutely hate pickles. And in New York, I don't know if this is true elsewhere, but in New York, you very often get this pickle by your sandwich. And so I've tossed away hundreds of pickles. I feel very guilty about it. So I was, the last couple of years, I've done some walking in Friends in the Cotswolds and down by the Seven Sisters, and I just love it. And somebody presented me with a cheese and pickle sandwich. And I was very delighted that it was not pickle as I think of it. It's more like chutney or something, at least the
Yes.
sense that I had, yeah, which was delicious. But, so I love, wrapping up presents, and I just pickles, they're gonna have to I share them with other people.
And finally, where can people get their hands on a copy of The Queen's Musician?
In the United States and Canada, it's available in pretty much where books are sold. In the UK, it's available from Amazon UK and Blackwell's. And actually, I just checked Blackwell's, and they say that mostly it ships within 7 days. So
Okay.
they have it in stock. You know, I don't know. I don't. Some you don't know where your books are probably all the time. I don't know where all the books are
No.
all the time, but it is available in those
And it's
stores.
available as an ebook as well, isn't it?
If you, as an ebook, yes, an
Yeah.
ebook or as a print book. And you know, I'm thinking about whether I can find a audiobook because some people say that that's what they want to do. I like books myself, but other people do. They do like to listen. And it,
Yeah, some people like to put something on in the car and that. So yeah, I think audiobooks are really popular. Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
thank you so much. This has been such a joy talking to you. So thank you so much, Martha, for joining us. And I mean, your book is just beautiful. I mean, I was so pleased when you sent me that copy of it, and I was so pleased when it was just a wonderful read. I mean, I couldn't put it down. And I
Thank you.
love that because then I can write an endorsement. You know,
Oh, thank you.
it's really difficult if someone gives you a book and it's yeah you don't feel that you can, but with you it was very easy to write that endorsement. It's such a good book, and I just loved your Mark Smeaton, and yeah, I
Oh,
loved that you gave him some happiness amidst the tragedy of his life. So
yeah. Oh, thank you. I that is has been the most meaningful kind of response, and I want to thank you for what you do. I am such a fan.
oh,
And I'm always tuning in and thinking, oh my goodness, yes, I never knew that. So I thank you as well.
oh thank you.